And, it made me think, what if we have misunderstood boredom? What if instead of trying to fill it, we learn to value it? You might even think, no work and still getting paid? What's the problem? But what happened next was unexpected. The researchers concluded it wasn't the lack of income that broke people, it was the lack of purpose, identity, and connection. It's an intentional neighborhood built with both your private home and shared community spaces in mind. These communities are often uniquely supportive for neurodivergent individuals, including children and adults with ADHD, autism, sensory sensitivities, or social anxiety. Hello and welcome to Andisheh Parenting. I want to start today's episode with something I heard the other day. A parent I know shared something that stuck with me. She had recently hired a new nanny, and after a long day together, her toddler was cranky, frustrated, and out of sorts. The nanny hadn't really entertained him much, she explained. There were no sensory beans, no playground trips, no puppet shows or creative snacks, just time spent at home. Some blocks, some books, but mostly just time. It was a rough day, she said, and she was worried the new nanny might not be a good fit. But something about that story struck a chord because maybe, just maybe, it wasn't a failed day. Maybe it was something else. Maybe it was the first time in a while that her child had space to feel bored, to not be directed or distracted or occupied every moment. Maybe for the first time in weeks, his nervous system had time to come down from all the stimulation. And that transition felt like crankiness. What looked like a bad day was actually a very necessary one. And, it made me think, what if we have misunderstood boredom? What if instead of trying to fill it, we learn to value it? Let me tell you a story, something that really happened about 100 years ago in a small Austrian town called Marienthal. Almost everyone there worked at the same textile factory. Their lives were built around that factory, daily routines, status, purpose, community. Then the factory closed, just like that. Nearly the whole town was out of work. But this wasn't a disaster in the way you might imagine. The government provided financial support. People weren't going hungry. They didn't lose their homes. On paper, things were okay. You might even think, no work and still getting paid? What's the problem? But what happened next was unexpected. A group of researchers came to study the town. They didn't just track money, they looked at how people spent their days, how they felt, how they related to each other, and they saw something alarming. Stopped making plans. They lost their sense of time. They stopped meeting up, socializing, doing things together. They weren't resting, they were shutting down. There was no urgency, no pride, no forward motion. Even simple things like going to the library or organizing a card game slowly disappeared. The town fell into quiet apathy. But not everyone. A small group of people managed to stay active and emotionally intact. They found replacement routines, volunteering, teaching kids, fixing things, creating art. Nothing dramatic, but it gave them structure. And that was the key. The researchers concluded it wasn't the lack of income that broke people, it was the lack of purpose, identity, and connection. And that story interests me in this way that it shows how much humans need rhythm, not just rest, not pressure or hustle, but something meaningful to do with our time. Now, zoom in with me from that little Austrian village to the lives of our children today. Picture a typical weekday. School from 8 to 3, maybe piano on Mondays, soccer on Wednesdays, homework squeeze in between, a little screen time before bed. Their calendars can look like miniature version of ours. Some kids even know what a Google Calendar is. And then finally, a break comes, a Saturday afternoon summer vacation, a moment without a plan. And what do we hear? I'm bored. It's tempting to panic when we hear that, to jump in, schedule something, and suggest an activity, fix the boredom. But here's the thing, that cranky, restless feeling, that might not be a problem at all. That might actually be opportunity. You see, just like those folks in that village, Austrian village, who lost their jobs, our kids rely on structure to feel anchored. When the structure disappears, even for a few hours, they wobble. And unless they've had some practice managing that wobble, they don't know what to do with themselves. But unstructured time isn't empty. It's where children learn to fill time. It's the training ground for self direction. It's when they make up their own games or follow their curiosity or solve small problems without being told how, or even sit with discomfort and come out of the other side satisfied. That's why how we think about childcare matters. Let me tell you a story. Not exactly true, but based on a lot of true ones. A mom hires a new nanny. The nanny is calm, warm, gentle. She doesn't whip out crafts every hour or plan outings all day. At the end of the first week, the toddler is grumpy, restless, not melting down, but definitely not beaming with joy either. The mom wonders, is this working? And the answer might be yes, it is. Because children don't need a cruise director, they need a safe, responsive adult. They need time to figure things out, to get bored, get frustrated, and then discover what they want to do. Now, of course, this looks different depending on the child's age. All the toddlers need more scaffolding. You can't just say go play and expect them to know what that means. But even with toddlers, we can build little windows of freedom, maybe 30 minutes of guided play, followed by 15, 20 minutes of quiet, independent time, even if they whine a bit. And here's the golden ticket, peers. When kids have other kids around at the playground, on the block, in the backyard, they can stretch those unstructured minutes into hours. That's why environments matter. A play-friendly neighborhood, a shared courtyard, a park within walking distance. These aren't luxuries, they are the backbone of self-driven childhood. And nature. Nature helps too. Not wilderness necessarily, just dirt, sticks, grass, bogs. Stimulation that isn't designed for them, but is still full of wonder. That's the kind of environment where unstructured time becomes magical. What does this mean practically? It means we, as parents, should intentionally leave space in our children's week for nothing. One day a week with no scheduled activities. Afternoons where being bored is okay. Time in nature or in the living room with just imagination and simple toys. In doing so, we give them the tools to create joy, structure, and meaning on their own. Imagine a neighborhood where you step outside your front door and instantly bump into a neighbor, maybe waving, maybe sharing a coffee, maybe finding your child already mid-game with a group of kids. Something that we had in 80s, I think. But we do have that in our modern time as well. That's what modern co-housing looks like. It's an intentional neighborhood built with both your private home and shared community spaces in mind. Co-housing is organized so that homes are clustered together, often around a common green space or courtyard. Cars are parked on the edge. Almost everything inside is pedestrian only. You have a common house or You can have shared meals, laundry, shared guest rooms, shared celebrations. Residents govern themselves, decide together how everything from meals to maintenance works. That fosters real connection, not just proximity. This model started in Denmark in 1970s, came to the US in the late 80s, and since then has grown into a vibrant, proven approach to community living. Co-housing isn't a niche anymore. It's a global and growing movement. In the US, there are more than 160 fully completed co-housing communities, with another more than 100 under construction for formation. It is spanning over 25 states. That means around more than 260 communities actively housing people across the country. Globally, countries like Germany, Denmark, UK, Australia, Netherlands, Canada, and Iceland have dozens to hundreds of stable long-term co-housing or intentional communities. So some of these examples is, I think it's called Moir Commons in Davis, California. That was established in 1991, the first US co-housing community and still going strong. Or Twin Oaks in Virginia, founded in 1967. This one, there are over 100 adults and 17 kids living there, running shared businesses and collective lifestyles. Christie Walk in Australia, it's an eco-co-housing developmental built on ecological principles and still thriving after decades. I'm giving all these examples and all these numbers just to prove that co-housing is not a theory or experiment. It's a mature, successful lifestyle choice. People live in hundreds of real places across the world. I've been researching this idea of building a new co-housing community in Austin, Texas, a vision rooted in all we've been talking about. A safe central common courtyard or green space where kids can roam freely. An intergenerational design so parents, grandparents, teens, toddlers all live together and support one another. Shared spaces like kitchens, gardens, tool sheds, guest rooms, places that remove isolation. Intentional planning so that community life, governance, and shared rhythm can flourish naturally. Austin's culture, which is family-oriented, nature-loving, entrepreneurial, feels like a perfect match for co-housing values. And while there may be scattered student co-ops or housing co-ops in the city, there's not yet a full-scale co-housing neighborhood. Learning from other communities how they overcame legal, financial, and design hurdles, I'm in the early stages of gathering a founding group. It's early days, but many thriving communities begin this way, a handful of committed families sharing a dream and logging in land and planning services. Living in co-housing isn't just a solution to loneliness or a playground for kids. It's a framework for inclusive, resilient, emotionally supportive living. These communities are often uniquely supportive for neurodivergent individuals, including children and adults with ADHD, autism, sensory sensitivities, or social anxiety. Why? Because they offer predictable routines, low stimulation outdoor spaces, naturally recurring social contact without pressure, and neighbors who come to understand each other over time, not just as acquaintances, but as extended chosen family. If this idea sparks something in you, there are some fantastic resources to dive deeper. I suggest these books. An older one is Creating Co-Housing, Building Sustainable Communities by Kathryn McCamant and Charles Durrett. I'm taking a class with Charles Durrett, and oh my God, it's an amazing class, and I'm learning a lot how to build one. The other book is Co-Housing Communities, Designing for High-Functioning Neighborhoods. And another book is One Life Live It by Charles Durrett, a beautifully written book by a leading co-housing architect, blending memoir and manifesto to explore why community is the future of housing. If you're imagining something like this for yourself or your children, even just daydreaming about it, maybe that's the first step. It was for me. And now I'm actively exploring how to make it real right here in Austin.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Andisheh Parenting. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and share it with someone who might benefit. And if you have a powerful story or experience that could help other parents or children, I'd love to hear from you. You can send me a message on social media or contact me through the email I share in the description. Until next time, take care of yourself and your little ones.